everyone. Welcome to another program for our Aquarium Online Academy. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We're going to be learning all about crustaceans today. So if you're hearing crustaceans and you're not too sure as to what a crustacean is, feel free to kind of explore that word. What might it remind you of? And if you already know a little bit about crustaceans, start thinking about some of those animals as well. But we'll definitely talk more about those things. This might give you a little hint that Jen just did, which is this. So I'm definitely not alone in the office today. We do have Jen, who's behind the computer, who's going to be controlling everything going on behind us. She'll give you a little claw hello. We also have Erin, who's going to be on our other computer today. So if you have any questions today you want to share with us, any observations, anything like that, we do have a live text line that you can use. And you can see that live text line on this screen right now. So that number, if you want to text into, is going to be 562-286-1838. And like I've mentioned, that text line is live. So you can send in any questions to Erin and then she'll pass them along to me. However, if you are watching this program any other day that isn't January 29th, from around 9 to 9:30 in the morning, you can still send in your questions and observations, but instead of using this text line, you're going to want to use our email. So that email is going to be live@lbaop.org. But once again, if you are watching live this morning and if you have any questions, you can use this text line to text in with your parents' or guardian's permission. But like I mentioned, today we are going to be learning about crustaceans. So what is a crustacean exactly is a really great question to start off with. So you might be familiar with some crustaceans. So things like crabs and lobsters and shrimp are a really great example of what a crustacean is. So I want to talk about, well, what exactly makes a crustacean a crustacean? And I want to grab something really quickly to show you, because all crustaceans fall under this category. And it's a rather large word. If you want to practice saying it with me, they're actually invertebrates. So you can try saying that word with me. Invertebrate. If you want, you can say it out loud. You can say it in your head. If you're watching this with anyone, you can tell them, you can tell your pets, your plants, anything you want, but they are invertebrates. So look at this really cute example of a crustacean. Let me get off of the screen because I also want us to start making observations. What do you notice? I am going to tell you right now, we are going to be exploring different examples of crustaceans this morning. So you're going to get an idea of just the wide range this group really has. So that word I mentioned to you, invertebrates. So what is an invertebrate? So when we're observing different crustaceans, what this means is that invertebrates don't have bones. So I have a question for you now. Are we an invertebrate? Do we have bones? Yeah, we do have bones. So we are a vertebrate. So we're not an invertebrate like these crustaceans. We are a vertebrate. So if you want, if you haven't stretched this morning, you can put your hands up in the air and then do a nice stretch to touch your spine. You feel that? Your backbone? That's your vertebrae. So that's what makes us a vertebrate. But things like those crabs, lobsters, and shrimp, they don't have those bones. So I want us to start thinking about if those crustaceans don't have bones, what are possible ways they can actually protect themselves? Let me get off of the screen here and we can start to make observations on this Japanese spider crab. What do you notice? So you might be looking at its long arms and appendages, its claws. But I was mentioning they don't have bones. They have that really soft body. So it's going to be protecting that really nice soft body that we can observe in this picture that we're looking at. That shell, right? So that shell's going to be really important to these crustaceans since they don't have those bones and they have that really soft body inside. So I want to go ahead and explore some of these different shells. So let me pull some out and we can look at them in our Explorer camera. So we can start off with a few different things. And let me just get this set up for us, friends. And remember, if you want to share any of those observations or send in any questions, we do have that live text line. So here we go. So there is something very special I want to talk about as well as we are exploring these different shells and things today. What we're looking at right now is the shell of these different animals. Something very special that these crustaceans can do actually is what we call molting. Does anybody know what molting is? So, crabs and lobsters, like the shell that we're looking at right here, will actually be able to come out of the shell completely. So they have that really soft body that is able to come out, and then they'll actually be able to develop a new shell. So what we're looking at right now, which I put on the camera for us, was part of this molt, which is how we're able to look at these shells. And you can see how perfectly they can come out, which is always one of my favorite things, is being able to see these legs and how well preserved they are. I also have a different example of a crab one right on over here that we can look at. I know there's also a very cool video that we have of a crab or lobster molting that we can take a look at. I'll give Jen a second to be able to find it, but we'll be able to see that molting in action. This molting can take quite a while. Sometimes it's around an hour. It can even be longer. So as we watch this video, I want us to think about, what do you think are different threats of molting? We've talked about how they have that really soft body, and so when they come out of these shells, that soft body is exposed. So what do you think can be some negatives of that? Because we've spoken about the positives. They're able to grow those new shells that are really nice and strong. But here we have the video, so we can start to look at these different things. So just have that in the back of your mind. And if you want to share any of your thoughts, any observations that you make throughout the video, I definitely welcome you to do so. But depending out there in the ocean, a lot of the times when these crabs or lobsters do these molts, they'll go and hide in different places as well. So now let's take a look at this video and we can see. So I do want to mention that this video is sped up. The molting does not happen this quickly typically. So I believe it's sped up around 40 times the actual speed. So that's what we're looking at right now. So you can see how it's coming out of its shell, that really nice body that's getting exposed while that shell is being left behind. So I just had Loma Vista, welcome, good morning everyone, who is asking me how many times do they molt? And that is a great question. It really depends on the crustacean, how often they're going to be molting. Depending on the species we're going to be talking about, they'll either do it sooner or later. So sometimes it's around once a year, it's every other year. I know we have some horseshoe crabs here, and they don't molt very often. They molt every like 3 to 5 years. So it really depends on the conditions and the type of species that we are observing. And it is quite a bit at the very beginning when they are younger, as they are getting bigger and have to get those shells as they do grow and all of those different things as well. But as I've been talking, if you've been watching this video right here, you can see how it's starting to get all of those arms and appendages out of that shell. And just a look at how beautifully preserved that shell is, which is how I was able to share my shells with you on my Explorer camera. But you can see it got its whole body out of that shell now, and you can see that whole soft body as well. So before we explore why it's important for them to be able to protect themselves during this, I want to answer another question that came in. So I have Josie who's asking me, can they pinch hands? So a lot of the times when we think about crabs and lobsters, right, we think of those claws and those pincers. And a really good reason why they have that is to be able to protect themselves. So when they're out in the ocean, to protect themselves against predators and fish, different things like that, it's important important for them to be able to protect themselves with those claws. But Josie, if you're asking if they're going to pinch our hands, most of the time when these animals see us, they don't really want anything to do with us, if I'm being honest. We're a lot bigger than them and everything. So a lot of the times they'll hide away in the rocks, in the sands, different things like that. I always just say it's really important to be respectful when we are out in the ocean and exploring their natural habitats since we are visiting them in their home. Ooh, and I just had a question for Miss Williams, and she's asking, why do they molt? So let me get off of this screen and you can see this beautiful shelled crustacean we have here. So why do these crustaceans molt? So a reason why they do molt is to have that nice, strong, and new shell. And like we were talking about, a lot of the times when these crustaceans are younger, they are going to be molting more frequently. So as they grow and get bigger, they have a shell they fit into. So that is some of the reasons why they molt. I know at the beginning when I was introducing molting to all of us, I wanted us to think about, well, what are possibly some of the negatives of molting. We spoke about how they have those really soft bodies that those shells do protect. So it makes it really easy for predators to be able to target these animals. So that is why when they do molt, they like to go and try and hide within rocks and different things like that. When they molt here at the aquarium, if you're curious, what we'll do is the aquarists, which are the different people who work with them, are able to observe their patterns, and a lot of the times their feeding patterns will actually change. So when they take note of that, they're able to take that crab or that lobster out and isolate it in its own exhibit, and then like that they don't have to worry about any of the other animals within their exhibit, and they're just able to molt in that stress-free environment, and then they'll go back in once they're able to have that shell. I do see some more questions have come in. So I have Anna Claire who is asking, are sharks invertebrates? I can kind of see why you're thinking that, Anna Claire. Because when we think about sharks, right, this is a really great picture of a zebra shark that we just saw. We don't really think that they have really big bones, right? But sharks are actually a type of fish. And I know when we think about sharks, we don't think that sharks are fish, but there are two different types of fish out there. So there are bony fish, which are fish like clownfish, different types of tropical fish, lots of different bony fish. But there are also cartilaginous fish, which is the category that sharks fall under. So if you were to feel the tip of your nose, if you were to wiggle your ears, you were to feel that cartilage, and that's actually what sharks are made out of. So they don't fall exactly into that category. And I also have Alexia and Antonio who are asking, what do these crustaceans eat? So they eat a wide variety of things. They'll eat different types of plankton sometimes they can find in the water, different types of little worms and bugs out there in the sea. Sometimes they'll also eat smaller fish, depending on what type of crustacean we are talking about. Their diets have a very wide variety. Ooh, and I have Noel who's asking me, well, how do they survive underwater? Which is a really great question. I want to start by looking at our California spiny lobster, and we can make some observations and we can think, well, how are these crustaceans able to survive underwater? So we've already explored some of those adaptations that they do have, which means they have different things that allows them to survive and thrive out there in those natural habitats. So here we're looking at a lobster, and you can start to make some observations. We've already spoken about a few different things that we can see on the screen that this spiny lobster does have in order to protect itself. We've gone over the importance of shells, how shells are super, super important to these crustaceans, so it does protect that softer body in there. And we've spoken about claws. However, not every single crustacean is going to have claws, and the California spiny lobster is a great example of that. They don't have those claws, but they do have that shell that is able to protect them. So they actually do different things in order to stay protected. The California spiny lobster is actually nocturnal. Do we know what nocturnal is? You can think about it for a second. So that means that you're going to be active mostly during the nighttime and you're going to be sleeping during the daytime. So maybe you can relate to this. Maybe you like to sleep during the day and you like to be active during the night. But that's what they do. So during the times that they're sleeping or they're exploring out there in the ocean, their natural habitats, they'll actually hide in the cracks and crevices of these different rocks out there in their natural habitat. That exhibit that I actually opened up with at the very beginning is our Blue Cavern exhibit, and it's a really great example of where these spiny California lobsters will be spending their time within those rocks. We just don't have lobsters in our exhibit because it would be kind of hard to take care of them. But if you ever go to the actual Blue Cavern, you would see thousands and thousands of lobsters all over the sandy bottom out there. So that is a really great question, Noel, because different crustaceans will protect themselves in different ways. And that California spiny lobster is actually very, very important to its natural habitats because they like to eat something. So I got a question earlier about what do they eat, and like I said, they eat different things. One thing that the California spiny lobster loves to eat, and we can see a picture of them walking all around over here. They love to eat sea urchins. So they're really important to this kelp forest you can find them in because they will monitor the sea urchin population and be able to eat them. And that's really important because sea urchins love to eat kelp. And here we have a very beautiful picture of this sea urchin with a nice blade of kelp. So the lobsters do a really great job at keeping the sea urchin population in check. And I do see I have a couple more questions coming in. So I do want to take a minute to answer them. And I have Haley who's asking what animals eat crustaceans. Ooh, and I'm also being told that Owen loves to eat crab. So there are a variety of animals who will actually eat crustaceans, especially if they are able to do so. Here, Jen put up a really great picture of a sheephead. So sheephead are able to eat crustaceans. And if you're looking at this like, that's a fish, how are they able to eat crustaceans? So just like crustaceans have different ways that they're able to protect themselves, different foods that they eat, fish come in all different shapes and sizes, and that actually includes their teeth as well. So sheephead have really nice, strong teeth, and that's how they're able to munch on harder things. Sheephead will also eat sea urchins as well as crustaceans. So there's a variety of different things. I also have Avery who's asking, why do invertebrates not have bones? That's a really great question, Avery. Why do invertebrates not have bones? So that's just their natural anatomy. There's lots of different invertebrates. And let me get off this screen because you can see some different invertebrates in this picture that don't have bones. Like those sea anemones. You also have jellies that don't have them, sea stars. And that's just part of the group that they're in. So they have lots of different ways to protect themselves. And I have Miss Gooseman who's asking, do crustaceans lay eggs? And I believe the majority of them do lay eggs. So there are, I would believe, a couple exceptions out there in the natural habitat, but the majority of them are laying eggs. Ooh, so I do have Jen who is telling me she's going to try and maybe find a picture for us where we can tell the difference between the male and the female, but we'll see. And one question who I got from Angie, are crabs and lobsters cousins? So they are both part of that crustacean family. So they do have some similarities that we can observe and see them overlap. So in a sense, yeah, if they were in a family, they would be close cousins, maybe first cousins. But you are able to see that overlap in between these different crustaceans and also those differences as well. Ooh, so this Japanese spider crab that we are looking at is a female, which I do want to admit, I just learned this right now because I am definitely learning alongside all of you. So if we look at this section over here of the Japanese spider crab, so this whole section is very, very wide, which is telling us that it's actually a female. So part of the reason why it's important for it to be wide is if it has babies or has to carry anything like that, you're going to be seeing a more wide kind of diaphragm in a sense on its body versus the male. Yes, and a lot of the times too, I do know with some crustaceans, depending on the shapes of their claws and pinchers, that's another way that we can actually tell if they're male or female. I also have Mackenzie who's asking me, well, what do crabs eat? So that Japanese spider crab will be eating different types of fish and different things like that here at the aquarium, and we'll actually get that out there in the ocean as well if it manages to grab a hold of those different things. Here we can see a really nice look at this Japanese spider crab who's very intrigued by this camera, but you can see that pincer shape that I was speaking about as well. They also have different bands on them. So you can see, I believe the band is right here for this Japanese spider crab. So that's how we're able to tell if they're male or female as well. So there's lots of different ways of identification, especially when we have them here at the aquarium, because sometimes they can kind of look the same. So it's important that we're able to keep track of them. The Japanese spider crab is also probably one of my favorite crustaceans as well. They are the largest crustacean of all the crustaceans out there that we could possibly explore. You can see those really long legs that they have. So if you want, you can spread your arms. And I can tell you, our arms are probably not the length of their leg span because that measures around 12 to 12 and a half feet for them if they were to spread one arm to the other. So that gives us an idea as to how long and big they can actually get. They can also dive very, very deep. And here in this picture, we can get a good look at those arms that we were talking about. And like I mentioned, they can dive very deep out in the ocean. They can actually dive around 2,000 feet. So just imagine this crustacean being able to go all the way down there, and then they're able to explore all those different habitats as well. And I do want to get to one last crustacean because I know we've gotten good looks at that California spiny lobster, that Japanese spider crab, but now I want to look at one that's a lot smaller than anything we've spoken about today, which may be a little bit surprising. But we're going to be taking a look at krill. So krill is a very, very small animal out there in the ocean, but it's a very important crustacean too. So krill is going to be food for a lot of animals. Krill is the smallest food out there for the largest animal on the planet, which is a blue whale. So when we think about krill, most of the time it's about less than an inch. It can grow to be about 6 inches, but that's still really, really small. So when you think of a blue whale that measures around 80 to 100 feet that's eating an animal that's about less than an inch, it's kind of baffling, right? But krill arguably are one of the most important crustaceans. So let me just pull up a sample of krill that I have, and we can take a look at that as one of our last look at things today. So this is some preserved krill that we do have, and here we are. Let me just adjust this for us a little bit. There is a little bit of a lag, so just give me a second, friends. But you can take a good look at this krill right here. And here we are. And to just give you a size of reference, these are smaller than my pinky. So you can just look at my pinky right there, and you can see none of the krill are as big as my pinky. And like I said, it's food for a lot of those bigger animals, lots of different fish. So krill are a very, very important crustacean as well. So like I said, I know we've explored lots of different crustaceans, and I just want to take a second to answer these last two questions. I had a Lily who asked me, how long do spider crabs live? So spider crabs can actually live a very long time. They can live around 100 years. And I also have Nathaniel asking me, well, why do crustaceans have claws? So we've spoken about how some crustaceans have claws while others don't. So all these different animals have different ways to protect themselves. So if you have claws, that's going to be a good way for those crustaceans to be able to protect themselves and be able to get food as well. But you'll definitely see lots of different body shapes and lots of different purposes for these crustaceans out there in the ocean. So leaving you with all of this new crazy crustacean information, friends. I do want to say thank you very much for joining us today. And teachers, if we are watching today as well, I do ask if you can please do us the favor of texting or emailing in how many students you had watching today as well. This gives us a better idea as to how many viewers we have so we can better cater towards all these different communities that we do want to interact with as well. And if you do have any other questions, just in general, friends, definitely feel free to still send those in. But instead of using this phone number, you're once again going to want to use this email right here, which is live@lbaop.org. But thank you so much, everyone, and have a good rest of your day.